Hey folks, BlackCross here. Welcome to another vlog video. For those of you that are new to the channel, this is usually the time of the videos where I usually like to post up different comments about what's going on in my life. Sometimes it could be what I plan on playing within the upcoming weeks, and sometimes it could be some interesting facts that you may not have known about me in the past. Figure I'd go ahead and put together this bit of a vlog video. This might be a long one, I don't know, but it all depends on how long I yammer at. But regardless to that fact, I want to go ahead and first and foremost apologize for the lack of live streaming that I have been attending. If any of you are following me through Twitch, then you guys probably know that I have not been appearing on Twitch. Excuse me, twice a week. And there are a couple reasons why. One of them is that usually I'm mostly tired. There's like one of the 2 days, which is usually either Tuesday or Wednesday, one of the 2 days I'm usually more exhausted than the previous day. And I get to that point of where it's like, I'm not in the mood to stream today. And that does happen, actually. It's like, you get so exhausted and you don't want to do anything. The other reason is that you probably noticed I've been trying to work on making other videos. These are mostly discussion videos, admittedly, but these are videos that I've been wanting to talk about. And I was like, you know what? I need to try to make more discussion videos. There are some discussions that I think I should hold for Mullen Studios. But until further notice, I'm just going to go ahead and make discussion videos on the side. You know, if there's a discussion video that I really feel like I want to put out there on my channel, then I'm going to do it. So with that being said, the perfect example would be the 8K video that I did just a couple of days ago. And I haven't uploaded it yet by this point, but I'm wondering how many responses I'm going to get. I'm probably going to be in the middle area, I'd say. I'm going to have most people disagree with me in that I am completely anal about this, or I'm going to have people agree with me and they say, yeah, there's really no reason to purchase an 8K, much less of a 4K, and they're the wiser person because they're saving their money for something that they're really wanting to get. That being said, I do plan on making more discussion videos later on in the future. What they will be, as of right now, is more hush-hush at the moment. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to get back into the habit of doing more different videos. Now, that's not to say that I'm getting tired of doing Let's Plays, because, I mean, I love playing video games, so what's the big deal, right? The biggest deal is that they're not really doing anything in terms of the channel. Perfect example is the Okami Let's Play. I actually enjoyed Okami. I'm actually really loving the game itself. But it's not attracting any views whatsoever. Like, if you were to look at all of my videos compared to Final Fantasy VII and Okami, Final Fantasy VII is getting more views. Now, this makes sense, obviously. It's Final Fantasy VII. We've got Final Fantasy VII Remake that's being in the process of being made. I'm planning on doing a discussion video in regard with that. But, other than the remake, it is probably one of the more popular Final Fantasy games out there, if not the favorite among the fan base. So that makes sense, but you would think Okami would just have, like, maybe one or two compared to that, but it's not received one. It might have had one in like one video per se, but not a whole lot. And on the one hand, it kind of disappoints me. On the other hand, it's like, well, I can just play Okami whenever I want to. But whenever I do these Let's Plays, I try to make it to where I'm as interactive as I humanly possibly can. But at the same time, it's like, because of the fact that these Let's Plays are not being live streamed and stuff, I'm not being interactive with any other people. That being said, it's... how can I put this? The live streaming I do enjoy a little bit better. It's one of those things where whenever the live stream does have a good batch of people watching and talking with you and stuff like that, that's whenever the most enjoyable. There are like one in every like 10 times that I'm streaming, and it's usually kind of a dead night. And considering I've got like 20 people following me on Twitch alone, it makes sense. And it's one of those things where it's like, technically it is in that process of where people's going back to school and stuff. So in other words, people aren't able to have as much time to do watching live streams and stuff like that. And this makes sense, obviously, it does. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder if this spells anything for me in general. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is anything that's going to affect me at all. In fact, it really doesn't. But it's one of those things where it's like, I really need to try to change the formula to some degree. Like, I've had the thought process come back to me all the flippin' time. And I don't know why that's the case. Probably because at one point in my mind, it's probably telling me that technically Let's Plays is basically a dead media. On YouTube alone. Twitch, because of how popular it is, people still watch Let's Plays all the time. But at the same time, it's like, Let's Plays aren't really popular anymore on YouTube. And I think it has to deal with the fact that both Markiplier and Jack have been playing less and less games, and they're now doing more and more entertaining value videos. Mostly Markiplier, where he's been putting together more and more scripted videos. That's not to say that that's bad, but it is in that sense of where it's like, that kind of tells you that they know that the media that they have originally started in is now kind of slowly dying, and they are adjusting to the death of Let's Plays. Now, that can't be said for like the Completionist or PB and Jeff and stuff like that. They go really, really strong, and I think it's because of the fact that they are a gaming community, but they also change about. Like, I know PB and J have recently started playing, I don't want to say it, but I know for a fact that these are like ROM hacks, because they're not exactly like official game per se. And they were playing the Pokemon randomizer, so it's like, okay, so these are ROMs. But to that extent, some of them was like really weird titles, and it's like, I don't think I've ever heard of this game. And it's like, oh wait, this is probably one of those fan-made hacks where they alter the game and stuff like that. You know, that type of thing. And with PPG, it kind of makes sense because he has that personality where it's like, he's used to some of the more weirder stuff. But that can't be said for everything. But as for the Completionist, he's been playing a lot of like regular console games. I don't think he's ever played strictly any PC games, or if he has, I have no memory of him playing any game that's strictly a PC game. I know he's played like Half-Life, and that was a PC game, but it's also available on most consoles now. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, technically he has played every game, and it's been a console release. So that being said, but then again, that leads to the discussion of like people like me, people who are in this media, who are trying to get their channel out there, and it's not picking up at all. And every once in a while my mind will tick at it, and it's like, you know, you have to change your formula eventually in order to get a spike out of it, you know, just to see if anything will work. And it's like, I get that. I do get that I have to change something in some form of way. But as to like how I should go about it, I have no idea how to do it as of right now. And it is of that factor that if I do change anything, it might hurt the channel. Then again, because of the fact that it's not even at 100, it really wouldn't matter, you know, it really wouldn't matter. And I'm not looking at it as like, oh, this will hurt my view rate. No, I technically have no view rate, so it has no effect. I'm talking about people might unsubscribe my channel, any that I have currently as of right now. So it is one of those things where it continues to haunt my mind, and it continues to put itself out there. Now, I've actually had a theory, or at least an ideal, per se. It's not really a theory, but I have an ideal. And that is that maybe I should try cutting out any regular Let's Play. Now, don't panic whenever I say this. I'm not planning on doing it right away, but maybe because of the fact that I have been doing a lot of Let's Plays, that maybe I should try changing things up a bit. So, what do I plan on changing a bit? The ideal structure is that after Okami, my next Let's Play video series I'm wanting to do is Fatal Frame 3. Been wanting to play that for ever since last year, but I couldn't because whenever I moved here, it was in October and I wasn't able to. So then I was like, okay, well let's just go ahead and just skip on Fatal Frame for the time being right now, and then we'll play it next year. And it's fixing to be October within the next couple of weeks, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to play Fatal Frame 3 whenever I get done with Okami. And I hope you guys will enjoy that one, because it's been a while since I played any scary game, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But that being said, also too, I still want to play through all of the Final Fantasy games. So in other words, they will still be uploaded on their normal scheduling. I say normal, depending on if I can keep streaming on the scheduling that I had previously made. That being said, there is no guarantee that, hey, I'll be doing this every 2 days that I'm off. It'll be just a matter of, like, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Because as of right now, we are currently in Final Fantasy VII. I'm still wanting to replay through 8, want to replay through 9, definitely want to go back and play through 10 and 12. Particularly since 12, I hadn't really started it. Technically, I have only played the PlayStation 2 version, and the PS4 version remaster release that came out technically has the Japanese job setup. So it's like I'm interested to see how that turns out. And then of course after 12 we'll play through 13, and then after 13 we will finally get to 15. And that's where I'll be playing through all of the content that Final Fantasy 15 has finally released. And at that point, I can finally get a full assumption of like how I feel towards 15. Which is weird because they said they had content that they were going to release for Final Fantasy 15, and ever since they first announced it back in like, I want to say February or March, that they haven't really updated it since. And I thought it was kind of weird. It's like, okay, they said they've got more content that they're planning on releasing, but so far I haven't seen any. It's like, huh, what's going on? Now, again, I hadn't picked up 15 in quite some time, so it's like maybe it's been like a internal installment, and that I didn't know about it. But then if that's the case, Final Fantasy 15 would have had updates, and on your PlayStation 4, or even Xbox One for that matter, it automatically lets you know when your game is being updated. So if that's the case, how come I haven't seen Final Fantasy 15 being updated, much less have any new DLC being added onto it? There is technically plans, but as to like if they're still going on or if they dropped them entirely, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, currently as of right now, 15 has no new content that's coming out as of right now, which might be a good thing, but at the same time, it is one of those things where it's like, technically they had announced that 2018 they're going to release the last bit of DLC content that they're going to put out. One of them being like episode Agna and episode Lunafreya. Now, whenever they first talked about that, I was thinking to myself, it's like, how are they going to do episodes with Agna and Lunafreya? I don't doubt that they can't put them together, but it is of that nature where it's like, okay, considering who they are, what type of situation are they going to have to go through? What type of gameplay functionality are we talking about? Or is it all just going to be one HD cinematic scene? Sort of like an HD movie per se. Which, I would not doubt that they would do that. But at the same time, it would be kind of weird considering this is in-game, and this isn't like an actual movie series, per se. So there's that, but that's my main plan right now, is that I want to go through and play through Okami, finish that, play through Fatal Frame 3, play through that one, and then go into Final Fantasy full force and play through all the remaining ones. That also being the case is that when that happens, I might change a few things here and there. That's not to say they're going to be immediate. That's not going to be like, oh hey, I'm going to change my formula or stuff like that. It's just, I feel like I need to adjust something to help improve the channel as is. And even if it means that my channel might end up being 0 subscribers, I do want to see what would happen. Then again, because of Delmar with his different videos, there are people that are still watching it in regards to it. Like, I can tell you right now that the majority of his subscribers watch it mostly because of the Thomas comedy parodies. Not that there's anything wrong with that, they are hilarious. All of them have been hilarious, especially the Thomas meets. But to that extent, Delmar is like, I want people to recognize my other video content and not just that. And it's like, well, that makes sense. You know, you make these videos, you're proud of all of them. There's not one video you're more proud of, there's not a series of videos. All of the videos you have put 100% in, and this makes sense. Me, because most of it is Let's Plays, there's nothing major about them. Like, for example, you have my normal Let's Play, like Okami, Blood Will Tell, stuff like that. It's mostly just me. And just by myself is where things turn for a different turn. Is that the content itself is just myself. And talking to you guys through the camera, and acting as though as if I'm talking to you directly. Which is currently what I'm doing right now, but that's beside the point. The point is that I think to myself that you will watch these videos regardless if it's 100% the best or if it's just generic. And to that extent, I feel like that's probably not the best. And considering who I am, I'm no better than, even for that matter, of just... In terms of what I do, I'm probably like 1/10 of what Markiplier, the Game Grumps, and stuff like that are. I'm not hilarious, I'm not funny. To some people, I'm probably interesting. That should be the word that I would say, that I'm interesting. I'm not fantastic, I'm not great, I'm just interesting. You know, I mean, even whenever people look at my collection and stuff, they look at me as an interesting person. So, with that extent, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like the channel isn't growing, and that I need to change something in order to see what can happen. You know? And when that's going to be, it'll probably change by 2019. So you've still got a whole year of, like, the normal Let's Play stuff. As to, like, when the major shift is going to happen, it will slowly happen probably after October, and then, like, November, December, I'll probably change a few things here and there, and then see what happens, you know. We'll see. But I am wanting to put out other video content, other discussions, other ideals and stuff, and so we'll see how that goes from then on out as well. Anyway, though, this other thing I want to go ahead and talk about, and mostly because of the fact that technically it might as well be a vlog, but my apartment renewal application form finally came in today. Which is weird, because I was like, probably would have received it earlier, but whatever. Technically, and I asked it my neighbor, because we're friends with him and everything like that. He was with us whenever we signed the papers with the previous owners. For those that don't know, back in like January and February, they were going through a change of ownership. And where we were previously owned by one company, we're now owned by a different company entirely. And so, with that being stated, they currently have the new the new ownership of the lot and everything like that. And so far they've been really good in terms of like how they've handled things compared to the previous owners. And keep in mind, the previous owners, I guarantee you they had the situation where They're working through a contract deal. They're being paid for this and stuff like that, which means that they don't have to worry about pushing out anything else because they're going to get rid of it entirely anyway. And putting any more work into the apartments is going to be a waste of money. Funny thing is that whenever the new owners come in, they said they want all the stuff fixed before they even sign the contract. Apparently they didn't fix everything, because by the time they finally transfer ownership, I even messaged them. I said, I know you just recently bought the property and everything like that, but there's some repairs that I've been needing fixed since I first moved in back in October. And they came in about a week later, which is incredible timing. They came in, we got to meet them and stuff, they looked at all the stuff they need to fix and stuff, and they were like, okay, this isn't no problem, we can fix it easily. And they did. They fixed all the problems, and with the exception of like maybe one, but that was because later on they had to come back and fix it with something else, everything got fixed within one day. There was a couple of holes that was on like certain walls and doors that the previous owner, which from previous owner I mean like he hasn't been here in like 4 years, he was very abusive, so naturally there would be holes in the walls and stuff like that. There was 2, should I say. So for those that are wondering, it's like, how many holes were there in the house? They were just 2. So, but they fixed them on that day. There was also a couple of light fixtures that needed fixing. One in the utility room where the washer and dryer is, and then one light fixture in the kitchen. Those got fixed as well. There was actually another issue, and that was the fact that we had no blinds. Luckily though, that got fixed before the renewal, switching hands of the apartments, thanks to the landlord who was at the premise. And so he was like, hey, I've got blinds now, and it's like, yay, we finally got blinds. So that was nice to have finally happen, is that we finally got new blinds added onto it. And what's funny is that I just wanted the 2 blinds because there wasn't one in that one, and then Delmar's in his bedroom, one was just broken off. But then technically downstairs there's one blind, but it only had one broken blind, just one little piece broken off, and I didn't see anything about it. But he says, you want to go ahead and get that fixed while we're at it? And it's like, if you want to. And I was like, nah, it's fine, it's fine. And so he gave me a 3rd one, and then we replaced it right then and there. So the blinds was fixed beforehand, but everything else got fixed pretty much on that one night. And so it's good to know that these owners are taking charge of everything that's going on. I recently notified them saying that recently a light post outside my house, all 3 bulbs are out, and it's completely dark in that area. And they said, we'll get that fixed as soon as we can. And so hopefully they'll get that within the next couple of days, hopefully within the next week, because it's one of those things where I feel safer with the lights on. Now, what's funny thing is, the lights are so freaking bright that when you wake up in the middle of the night, and it being like 1 o'clock in the morning or something, your windows will act as though as if it's like the middle of the day. And it's like, huh, that's weird, it's 1 a.m. And you look outside and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, the bulbs are that bright. It literally feels like it's daytime, even though it's nighttime. But it's probably a good thing, because in terms of like a security type thing, that helps tremendously. And really, we haven't had any problems at all, so definitely I do like that part in general. And then with the renewal finally and everything like that, got that out of the way and stuff. The only difference compared to, because I mean, I knew that because of new ownership, things will change for the apartment itself, but I didn't know how much of a change might occur. So then I was like, okay, I definitely need to read this just to make certain if nothing changed. And as far as I know, nothing major has changed, with the exception of the apartment bill went up by about $15. So it's like, that's not as bad as what I thought it was going to be. I figured they would go up like 50 or so, because technically these owners live in California, and they're moving, from the way I'm hearing, they're moving to Tennessee because they have more lots that they are fixing to purchase in the process of it. Now, the funny thing is, from what it sounds like for any newcomers that are fixing to move into some of these apartments, they are charging California prices. Yeah, about that. Unless these are like newly refurbished. And by newly refurbished, I mean you have to go inside the house, patch up any holes that you might see, repaint them, whatever else you can, make them as brand new as possible. I don't think you're gonna get them to pay full price of California rentals. Keep in mind, Crossville, Tennessee in general has a lower tax rating. So with that being the case, we don't get as much money in, but because of the fact that we don't have that high of taxes, we don't have to worry about that. It kind of balances itself out. So while we don't make a lot of money, we have lower taxes here, so it's not a major issue. It is for some, but because compared to other states, there is no major complaint. I mean, because the funny thing is that we get people all the time telling us that the reason why they move here was because of the tax rate. And it's like, well, how high of taxes was it in your state? And whenever they tell us, it's like, holy crap. It was pretty high. So it makes sense for why people would move down here rather than stay where they're at. And depending on if you're a Floridian, for that matter, you probably moved up. Actually, compared to Floridians, I say that they're probably in a better situation than anything because of the storm, the hurricanes, the winds, the tidal waves, all that stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to ask you why you moved up here. You have plenty of reasons, other than taxes, obviously. But I do want to kind of go ahead and talk about my year of being at the apartment. And originally I was wanting to do a separate video on this, but I figure, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the vlog video anyway, because it is a vlog video. So I go ahead and talk about my experience as a full year has passed for me living at the apartment. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that there are a little bit of pros and cons when it comes to living at the apartment, particularly in the apartment that I live in. For some people it may differ, but for mine and Delmar's case, where we are currently located at, it is differ. For some people it may be farther, for some people it may be closer. Ours is literally in the middle. And what I mean by in the middle, I mean it is in the middle of town, but it's also in the middle of mine and Delmar's universe. Like, we have some family members and friends that live in like a balanced, equal location of opposite ends. And what's funny is that because of where the apartment is located at, my mom and stepdad work at a factory that's like, I want to say like half a mile. It may have been half a mile, if not a mile at least. It's a little bit further, but it's not as far. It's about a mile away. I could walk to it if I want to, in one direction. And my dad recently occupied a warehouse facility for his bean sheds and stuff like that. He recently bought it. He recently signed the contract. It is right now being fully in production as we speak. He lives about a mile away in the opposite direction. So you see what I mean? It balances itself out entirely. I could see both of them if I wanted to, based on where they work. Where they live, I have to go in one direction of the town anyway. It's about a 15-20 minute drive depending on which one I go to, and depending on traffic-wise, which usually traffic isn't that bad anyway in that direction. It's mostly a dead street. But with that being said, it's relatively easy to get to. In terms of friends, everyone pretty much is balanced out around town. Like, you have some friends that live on one side, and you have some friends that live on the opposite end. So it balances out on that one. Our workplace is literally like 2 miles up the road. So again, that tells you how close we are to work. We never have to worry about being late per se. You have the fact that every restaurant that we could ever want to go to is like minutes away. This can be a good but a bad thing. It's a good thing because we can go to any restaurant we want to at any time and come back within like 5 minutes of time. Whereas if we lived back where we were with our parents, it would be like a 20-25 minute drive visit, maybe even an hour depending on traffic wise, just to go pick up food. And so it's one of those things where it's like, we are truly blessed to have everything conveniently right here in town. On the other hand, that means we are more than likely able to go out of town to get something real quickly and then come back. We try to reduce that as much as we can, but because of the fact that we get those coupon mail-ins, they're not food stamp for anyone that's asking. It's advertisement coupons based on these restaurants. I'm sure some of you get them from your newspaper and stuff. It's like McDonald's, Wendy's, and stuff like that. The coupons that tells you their offer that they're supplying and stuff like that, and how much of a discount you're going to get off and stuff like that. And because we get those a lot of the time, it's the perfect time for us to get something real quickly and be like, okay, we're back. We can eat now. So it's like, it doesn't take long at all. And that's just outside of the house, you know, which is mostly convenience. It's inconvenient because we're always eating out, but it's convenient for us because everything is like within minutes away of driving. Or even walking, depending on who you are, but really, because of how it is, do you really want to walk outside? I'm going to tell you right now, people are a little bit crazy when it comes to driving, so I wouldn't walk. But that being said, you also have the fact that inside the apartment, me and Delmar has actually come to realize that living by ourselves, we have done really well of managing our money-wise. And I was surprised how well I've managed my money situation. I was able to actually pay for my dental visit. I'm able to continue my collecting in some form of way. Not a whole lot right now, but enough to where I can save enough money to keep myself going for whenever the next time I go to Cookville or stuff like that and collect more games and everything. That type of thing. And so it's really nice to be able to like look at everything and realize that, hey, in terms of money situation, we've been doing really good. Which is very nice. It is. On the other hand, though, even though that is really good, there are a few flaws within the apartment itself. First and foremost, the first flaw is that we're constantly afraid that we're going to disrupt our neighbors. For those that don't know, me and Delmar work third shift. And because of the fact that we work third shift, we are going to be up during the nighttime. This is so that way we can keep things balanced between our work schedule and our normal daytime schedule whenever we see friends and family and stuff. And we try to keep that balance, but at the same time we try to stay awake for the most of the majority of the night. But we're always afraid that we're going to disturb our next door neighbor. And we constantly ask her, it's like, are we disturbing you by any means? And she's like, no, I was afraid that I was disturbing you. And I was like, well, as far as we know, we haven't heard you scream. Because she's a football fan, mostly Tennessee Falls. And if I'm not mistaken, this particular year, they've not been doing so good. So I have not heard her cuss. So that's probably a good thing. It's like, okay, I haven't heard her screaming, so these are very good insulated walls. They are. The only noise that I ever hear is like when she comes down the stairs or up the stairs. And that's like the only noise I hear, so it's not a major complaint. So that's always good to know. But in terms of like outside, I can hear, and the funny thing is I always worry that during my live streams and recordings that people could hear them. But as it turns out from my previous videos, whenever I looked at them, I have not heard them, but yet I can hear them clearly outside. Ambulances, police cars, fire trucks, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't help that, like, on the opposite end of where I'm technically living, like, if you go a little bit further past the facility that my mom works at, there is a firefighter station. So that's technically like within minutes away of them like coming by, and I can hear them clear as day. Now I get that they have to do this stuff for safety and stuff like that so that they can get to the site quicker, but I can hear them clearly. And so it's like, oh, that's a little annoying sometimes, because I mean, you wouldn't think that you would hear it all the time, but when you're in the middle of town, you hear it quite a bit. In fact, I want to say that I do at least hear these sirens at least once a day. on average. There'll be like 1 or 2 days where I don't hear them at all, but once a day you will hear a siren in some form of way. It doesn't help the fact that technically about 2 miles past there is a interstate that goes through town. A 4-lane interstate rather. So with that being said, it is one of those things where it's like you're going to hear those sirens regardless of what it is, and depending on how close they are depends on which road they're on technically. Like if it's slightly fainted, they're on the interstate, but if I can hear them clearly, they're just right now passing the road that goes to where the apartment is and stuff like that. But it's not a bad thing, it's an annoyance rather. Another thing too is that stairs. I've lived in a house that has no stairs whatsoever the majority of my life. This is the first house where I've actually lived in a house that had stairs. Me and Delamar both, at least once so far, has had a mishap of where we would slip down the stairs. And this is where we get reckless, we walk down the stairs, and all of a sudden our feet will slip, and we kind of land on our bottoms. Thankfully, we don't land forward in our faces or land backwards, we just slip and land on our butts. But let's put it this way, those stairs are not soft, they're not cushiony. It's like, ow, ow, ow. But it wasn't too bad, but it is one of those things where it's like, we have to be careful with stairs now. But actually, this is actually another thing before I talk about the big problem. The air conditioning unit. Now I get because of the fact that we live in a 2-story building, that obviously we've learned the gravitational force about heat and air. When it comes to air, it stays lower. When it's heat, it goes upward. And so upstairs, it stays heated up all the time. And there's nothing you can do. In terms of air conditions, downstairs, it stays cool all the time, but up here, and the good thing is you currently can't hear it, but I have a fan going on in my bedroom at all times, circulating the air and to keeping it cool at all times. And this has been a very nice thing to have put into my bedroom. I know some people are probably going to be like, why do you have a fan going on in your room? And it's like, it's hot in here. It's like I have 2 computer screens, I have my TV, I have my computer. I have a lot of tech that goes on during the time that I'm either recording or watching media of some kind. They are on, so in other words, my bedroom stays hot the majority of the time. This is not a problem during the wintertime, but during the summertime, oh Lord Almighty, can I sweat my balls. It is hot. But that's something to be expected now. Nowadays, it's like, okay, anytime there is a 2-story building or so, the air and heat flow is going to flow differently than what is expected. And I know for the majority of my family, whenever they come and visit the apartment, they're going to have the complaint of like, why is this so cold, or why is this so hot? And it's like, well, the upstairs isn't getting any. Or rather, downstairs isn't getting any, depending on how you look at it. If you're getting the air condition, the upstairs need more air, but down here is easily getting air with no problem. And so downstairs is usually colder than upstairs. Now when it comes to heating, downstairs doesn't get heated as much, but upstairs is like a sauna. So it's like you have no problem coming up to the bedroom and being warm and cozy. Downstairs, you might need a sweatshirt. So it's not a major complaint, but after living in this building, I started to realize that, hey, this is how it works. But my biggest problem that I have with the apartment. Now this is a big problem for me. But this is a standard for apartments. The bathtub is very small. Like, compared to my previous tub that I lived in with my parents, the tub size itself, you can get in and out with no problem. With my tub, because of how small it is, I'm surprised I haven't got stuck in it. And let's put it this way, I have wide hips. For those that are like, oh, well, what's the problem? He's not big. No, my hips are big. And so it makes you think that I'm bigger. And keep in mind, too, I'm wide. You know, I'm a wide person. I'm not big, but I'm wide, rather. And it appears in my videos that I probably look wider. I know some people would be like, you look perfectly fine. It's like, no, I'm pretty wide to some degree. But then again, that's just a personal preference per se. But the bathtub, I like to take hot relaxing tubs all the time. That's usually like the one thing I have to have, is that I can relax in a nice bathtub. Because of the size of the tub per se, I can't do it all the time. I can only take showers. And obviously this is just a simple thing that they figure, okay, we just need to have a bathroom, a fully functioning bathroom, to where people can just, like, you know, take a bath, take a shit, wash their hands, stuff like that. But because of the size of the bathtub, you can't really take a bath. You have to take a shower. And for me, that is a negative, in my personal opinion. I personally would have liked it to where they could have used that extra, like, 2 or 3 inches to give you a bigger tub. But that's just me. That's just me personally. They actually do have the room to where you could do that. I know some people would think that's not really enough space, but when you look at the bathrooms in the apartment and everything like that, there is actually enough room to where you could install a 2 to 3 inch bigger, or wider should I say, bathtub. But, oh well. I mean, it is what it is, and it is of that nature that you can't really control. But that's like the biggest problem that I have. Everything else is something that I can deal with. The sirens, thankfully, I haven't had a problem with it whenever I'm sleeping during the day. That's not a big issue. The stairs, I just have to be careful when going down those stairs. And then, of course, the heating and air, I just need to either bundle up accordingly or wear sleeveless all the time. Again, depending on the situation. Thankfully, because the fan that I've got right here is helping circulate the bedroom, so it's not as hot as it usually would get. So it does help. But with that being said, there is that factor that unfortunately there's nothing that I can do about it. And if I could change anything, the bathroom would be the big change that I would want. I want to have it to where I can relax in the tub. And I miss that. It's a luxury thing that you finally get to realize. And I think that's the biggest thing people don't realize, is that owning a house, regardless of how much money you have to put into it, it is a luxury home. An apartment is a convenient living space. And I know people are going to argue on that one, but hear me out whenever I say this. The good thing about living in the apartment is that you are not responsible for the utility replacement, fixing anything, or even for that matter, mowing the yard. If there is a plumbing or electrical issue, you have to call the landlord and they will get someone assigned to fix it. If the yard needs mowing, there is a mowing district that comes in from time to time. I think they come in like once a month and they mow the premise. So in other words, you don't have to worry about mowing whatsoever. This is a disappointing feature for my brother Delmar. He loves mowing for some reason. I don't know why, but he loves mowing. Me, I could care less. It's hot outside. I don't care. It's like I would rather get an automated lawnmower, which Delmar is triggered by that. I saw that one time and I was like, oh cool, an automated mower. And Delmar's like, what? He's triggered by there's an automatic mower. He's like, why would you do that? And it's like, because people can. It's like, no. I mean, I understand it for a small plot of land, but that's on a hill. And it's like, well, yeah, but if they want to, they can. It's like, but it's stupid. A rumba for the lawn? It's like, well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong on that one. But with that being said, there is also the fact that another complication that I have when it comes to the apartments, and I didn't really talk about it because I didn't really think about it, but depending on your owners, depending on the landlords and stuff like that, it could take a while before anything gets fixed. You know, normally if you are a homeowner, you can just call a repair guy or fix it yourself and stuff like that, and get it done that way. With a landlord, or owning an apartment for that matter, you can't do anything. Because if you do, then you're responsible for any problems that occurs after the fix. So in other words, if you try fixing your toilet, for that matter, say it's clogged up and you're not able to flush it, you can't do anything major than a plumbing. Like a plunger, basically. No more than a plunger. If for some reason it's still clogged up, you have to have the landlord call a professional plumber to get that fixed. And so with that being stated, you could be waiting anywhere between 2 to 3 days depending on the situation and depending on who they call. And depending on whether they live on the premise or not. Thankfully, we actually have an electrician that actually lives here at the apartment complexes. So it's like, this is convenient. He can just come in anytime he wants to, whenever an electrical outlet goes out, and he fixes it. In fact, whenever I was talking about the light post, I had the guy call me, and I told him that the light post outside just ain't turned on, it's not working anymore, and he's like, oh, okay, I can get that fixed, that's no problem. But sometimes you'll have to wait for a few days before it's even getting fixed. Whereas myself, because of the fact that I'm usually handy with tools and stuff like that, I usually prefer to get it fixed myself. And it's like, if I know I can get it fixed, if I can get it replaced, anything that's simple, like changing a light bulb, fixing a light switch or something like that, I can do easily myself. But in terms of like insurance planning and stuff like that for the apartment, if I did any of that, the aftermath would be fallen on me. So in other words, if there was like a short after the light switch would be replaced, I would have to deal with it myself. They would not fix it, I would have to fix it myself, and that would be a little bit situational. Thankfully, it's not a major problem, but it is one of those things where it's like, if I did anything, then I'm responsible for that property. In other words, it would come out of my money. And it would be more costly if I ended up breaking something. And I know in my case it wouldn't be a problem, but there is that random chance that a goof up might happen, and then boom, I'm stuck with it. That's always the case. But I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of how the apartments are and everything like that. You know, just to let you know that, hey, being in an apartment isn't bad. Especially in mine and Delmore's case. But it does have its flaws. And I think for some people, that flaw is seen in some cases. I know in some of the bigger cities, the apartment isn't a problem because they actually fit them up to be sizes of like homes. Like actual functioning homes. But here in Tennessee in general, as far as I've seen, the apartments are usually kind of like condensed. Just to fit the accommodation, so. But I just wanted to kind of talk a few minutes, or in this case, almost an hour, of how I feel about the channel and how I felt about the apartment per se. Let me know in the comments below how do you feel about the whole thing in terms of like the YouTube change up and everything that I might be planning on doing in the next few months. And then let me know in the comments below about any questions that you might have in regards to like apartments and stuff like that. So anyway though, I'll see you in the next video, and you have a wonderful day, and may God bless you. Catch you later, guys.